Hello, everyone. My name is Alex, and today I wanted to share my story regarding my upper cervical instability and the multiple procedures that I've had done at Regenexx in Colorado. So, my upper cervical journey started about I'd say about 4 years ago when I went to a chiropractor who gave me an extremely aggressive upper cervical adjustment. I actually went to the chiropractor because I was having an issue with the rib that felt a little dislocated, and I didn't ask for it, but he gave me an upper cervical adjustment. And immediately afterwards, boom, I started having blurred vision, vertigo, dizziness. I knew something was definitely wrong. It was Friday at the time, so the next week I went to my regular doctor and I said, I don't know what happened. This doctor screwed me up. It was hard for me to see anything. Had like brain fog, lots of pain in my neck, and it sort of radiated down into my upper trapezius. And that doctor told me, do not pass go, go directly to the emergency room and get a CAT scan of your neck to make sure that there wasn't any artery damage, any damage to any of the arteries that are carrying blood, blood to the brain, because that could cause all these sort of symptoms. So thank God I went to the emergency room. This is just sort of like a happy coincidence. And so, if there's any silver or golden thread throughout this story, it's this. I went to the emergency room, got a CAT scan of my neck, and they told me there was no damage to any of the arteries. But by the way, we found a brain tumor and thyroid cancer. So I've had brain surgery twice now and a thyroidectomy, and they were both found early stage on accident just because of this, just because of this neck injury. But be that as it may, the brain stuff and the thyroid stuff wasn't actually what was causing my issues. This started a multi-year process of me trying to fix my neck, and I tried so many things. I mean, if you look at all of the money I spent on upper cervical chiropractic, acupuncture, massage therapy, dry needling, physical therapy, uh, and a few other things, I easily spent over $20,000 of my own money, just trying to get better. And generally, what I found was the following. Upper cervical chiropractic, such as NUCA, worked really well for me, and it would help eliminate all of my symptoms. But the symptoms would only be gone for uh, a day or two. My upper cervical was so unstable that it was cracking, and I'm talking like right up here, cracking, grinding, popping, um, moving around in ways that it shouldn't, nonstop. And this resulted in extreme tightness in my sternocleidomastoid and my upper trapezius. And it just sort of went all the way up and down my spine. So I was always doing trigger point therapy and using TENS units and massagers and pretty much anything to try to relieve the muscle tension because when the muscle tightness was reduced, my blurred vision and vertigo and symptoms would seem to lessen. So I was working with an upper cervical chiropractor in Southern California who basically said, we've been doing this for a while. I think that there's some other instability stuff going on here. And he was co-authoring a paper with Dr. Rosa, and Dr. Rosa was co-authoring a paper with Dr. Centeno um, that had to do with upper cervical instability due to the ALAR CCJ ligaments. And those are basically the ligaments that connect the skull to the spine. And he said, why don't you go talk to the people over at Regenexx based in Colorado? So went back over there and they said, okay, well, you might qualify for this clinical trial, you might not, but we need to start this process. And it was honestly kind of a pain, but had to start this process. It took a year to basically rule out everything else, to try to figure out, was it anything simple? Is it anything that could be solved in a simple manner, or was it something a bit more severe? So, took, I would say, like 9 months for me to actually qualify for this clinical trial. But what they were doing is doing prolotherapy, platelet-rich plasma, and all of the facet joints up and down my spine from C0 to T1, and just trying to tighten stuff up. And we would have to wait 3 months and then do an analysis, and it wasn't really working. And so next, what we did was called a digital motion X-ray, and that's like a video X-ray where you're standing in front of an X-ray and you're moving your head, forward, backwards, side to side, and they're watching as the vertebrates move over each other and seeing how far they move past one another. And what they found with my neck is that there was some major instability and things were moving way further than they were supposed to. So after ruling out everything that it wasn't, and then showing that I had this major instability, they told me that I qualified for a new clinical trial that they opened up. And this clinical trial was kind of intense, and nothing like it has been done on planet Earth before, from my understanding. Because what they're doing is they're taking stem cells that come from your own body, and then they're injecting it into the joint. They call it the PICL procedure, or if you type it incorrectly, the pickle procedure. Uh, but what they're doing is they're injecting the stem cells into the facet joint, which actually, like historically, isn't too much of a big deal because they do that all the time in other parts of the spine, and it's, they just inject it in the back of the neck and it's no problem. But this joint in particular is the joint that connects the skull to the spine, and your brain stem is covering that area from the back, so they can't inject it from the back of your neck. What they discovered is there's like a hole in the bone area, basically, that they can inject through the back of the throat through this hole, and then they can inject stem cells directly in the back of your throat at the base of your skull, and then have them attached to the alar ligaments. So that was the procedure that I signed up for. You're under anesthesia. The stem cells come from your bone marrow, from your hip. In terms of pain, that was probably the most painful aspect of it, but even then, it's not too painful. I mean, everything in perspective, though, right? This was a whole lot easier than getting a spine fusion, which honestly was the only other option out there for me at this point, was to literally go and get a spine fusion, which I didn't want to do. I would I would have eventually if I didn't come across Regenexx, but um, so thank God I was not in the control group, because the way the study was designed, there was a 50% chance that I got a sham treatment and a 50% chance that I got the real thing. And thank God I got the real thing because that would have been very upsetting for me to have to have done all this work only to not get the real procedure. But um, at this point, I've had the procedure done 3 times, and most recently was 2 days ago. So, in brief, first procedure helped quite a bit, but it wasn't spectacular. But I was like really feeling it, and I was like, yeah, that was the area. All these other injections, everything else, it didn't really uh, target the area, but that injection, I was like, this is definitely the right thing. Like we're on to something here. But it wasn't night and day. I still had lots of instability. I still had, vertigo, blurred vision. Granted, I was at that point in my life, I could probably only walk a block or two without having vertigo, and then at that maybe I could walk half a mile. So we were getting somewhere, right? So waited about 9 months, went in for a second injection. The second injection was like, wow, it made a huge difference. And the thing about these injections too is that in my experience, I kind of backslide like after the first month, And then 3 or 4 months later, there's just like a day, it's like overnight, and everything just starts working better. I'm not entirely sure why or how that happened, but that's been my experience at least. So after the second injection, it was incredible. I there's a lot of things that I still can't do. I haven't been able to do, but there's so many things that I can do. So like I can go hiking again. I can go jogging if I want to. I can do Pilates. I can, actually enjoy my life. I mean, I was at the point where it's like I can stay at home. I can, walk around and I can get to work and I can stay at work for most of the day without issues. But that was pretty much it. But after the second injection, after a few months after the second injection, I could actually live my life, albeit I couldn't really go and do everything. Like I could go skiing, but not really do anything too intense. Um, but all things in perspective, that was like a million times better than where I was 2 years ago, so no complaints. So I went back to Regenexx and I said, I got such a great result out of that second injection. I want to have a third one because I want to get myself to 100%. I want to be able to go back to the gym and lift weights. I want to be able to push my body aggressively. And having seen how much of a transformation it was from no injections to the first one to the second one, I really feel like this most recent injection is going to make all the difference. So um, I just wanted to share this story for anyone who is interested in working with Regenexx or interested in stem cell therapy. A few things you should know is that this is a brand new procedure. You really should not have it done anywhere outside of Regenexx because of all the health risks associated with it. Um, it can be it can be dangerous if it's not done by qualified doctors or in a clean setting. You can get meningitis if proper protocols and clean rooms are not adhered to. Um, but what you should know is that Regenexx is basically the best in the world for this stuff. Dr. Centeno and Dr. Schultz together have they've published more stem cell research on planet Earth than any other group anywhere. Like period. They've invented more stem cell procedures at Regenexx than any other group anywhere on planet Earth. So they definitely know what they're doing. Their staff is great. Um, and in terms of expense, like I'm not gonna lie, it's not the cheapest thing in the world, but compared to a spine fusion and all of the future costs of in terms of pain and everything else of having in time off of work if you did get a spine fusion, I think Regenexx is definitely worth it. It if I had started at Regenexx first rather than wasting all my time on everything else, then I certainly would have saved a lot of money. But I'm hoping that this story helps people out there. And if you have any questions, feel free to comment here. I know I'm sort of long-winded, but this stuff's complicated, and you have to go into the details sometimes. All right, bye.